Hey everybody, Brian Zane here, and I'm sitting here in my Airbnb room in fabulous Las Vegas, Nevada. It's Monday morning, and in a few hours, I'm going to be getting out of here and going to the airport to get going back home. But in the meantime, I figured I would give you all my review for Wrestlemania 41. It was the end of what's been a very memorable and adventurous weekend here in Las Vegas. I was part of Prestige Wrestling's activities on Thursday night. I got to watch a lot of great wrestling at the meet between Thursday and Friday with, DPW, Prestige Wrestling, West Coast Pro Wrestling, Marvelous, and Stardom, and all the things in between that were happening there. Dragon Gate, Pro Wrestling Revolution. It was a really great time to be there and to see so many great wrestlers come through those doors and watching some of the stuff out of the Palms this weekend, seeing some other wild stuff happening elsewhere in Vegas on Twitter. I love WrestleMania weekend because no matter what you're looking for, you're bound to find something up your alley. And especially in a city like Las Vegas where there's so much to do, this has been a very fun time. Doing our best to push forward and have a good time because our good friend, Mr. Ooh La La, couldn't be part of the trip this year due to health concerns. And so a bit of a damper on the situation for the trip, but we tried to carry on and have his spirit guide us as we were in Vegas. This was just overall really great time. I didn't go to both nights of Mania this year. Ended up watching night one from home and then decided to splurge on night two and get tickets to literally the highest up row in Allegiant Stadium. I've never been so high up that there was literally nothing else behind me but wall. But that's what we got, and it was a fun time regardless of that view. Because I only watched one show live and one show on TV, don't think I'm going to do star ratings for this review for Mania. I'm just kind of going to go and give you vibes and overall thoughts. Oh, actually, before we go, we got to talk about the big story that broke WrestleMania weekend of WWE acquiring AAA from Mexico. This is a big deal, for a lot of reasons. I don't think there are as many good things that can come out of this as bad in terms of its impact on the business as a whole. We all know that anytime WWE buys a company, that company does not last. And it's not, they're going to take those parts that they like and cast aside the parts that they don't. And I think that WWE buying AAA is similar to when they wanted to infiltrate the UK market and when they wanted to, get their toe in the independent market in America. I worry that there could be, lasting impact to this when it's WWE's vision over a Lucha Libre company. And Lucha Libre having such a big impact on culture in Mexico. It's going to be very interesting to see how this relationship goes forward. And, certainly makes me think about their relationship with TNA, especially as this weekend went down. And we'll get to that when we get to it. But my thoughts on WWE buying AAA, it's just one more pile. It's one more thing to add to the pile for them. I think monopolization of anything is bad, and I think we all remember how boring wrestling was when it did operate under a monopoly. And I really hope people realize that it's good to have multiple companies and multiple philosophies and multiple people in charge of these things so you can have all these different mindsets in wrestling and just let the market decide. But I think that, good for WWE's portfolio. I think long term it's not going to be great for AAA or the Lucha Libre scene in Mexico, or the business in general. But that's just my 2 cents on the matter. What do you think about the acquisition of AAA? Let me know in the comments section. And okay, for now, we will get into the review of Mania. First, let's talk about that set. It was the WWE Casino. I feel like this was the final result of what that planned casino building the WWF wanted to do in the late 90s, early 2000s. This was the final end result of that vision, I feel. And those big LED screens that were floating alongside above the ramp. When I first saw the set reveal, I thought those were like AR, but then when you see it live, like, oh, okay, interesting concept. It's kind of like a digital version of those banners that were around the arena at WrestleMania 22, which I said in that review, well, they've never done anything like that since then. Well, they kind of have here. Also, it took me way too long to realize that those lighting rigs above the ring were meant to be poker chips. In your opening match for the World Heavyweight Championship main event, Jey Uso challenges Gunther and tries to finally get one up on him. That's been the big story, is that Jey has constantly been coming up to Gunther over the last year or so and has always come up short. And Jey, of course, won the Royal Rumble this year, and that was a very polarizing booking decision. And a lot of the debate centered around, can Jey Uso be, considered viable or legitimate as a world title competitor or as a world champion? And I think this match went a long way in answering that question. I like the story going into it, not just the win-loss record, but also Gunther beating and bloodying Jimmy in front of Jey, and that motivating Jey to do better. He's all fired up, and Gunther now seems his confidence is shaken at Jey's resolve, and I think that plays a big role in this match as well. Like, there's a lot of posturing in this matchup. There's also, it seems to be going pretty quickly. For a matchup that went about 20 minutes, it felt like it seemed to go fairly fast, and they were just going through, okay, we got to hit this spot really quick, and they're going through it. It seemed like they were playing all the hits. Not that it was a bad thing. I think that this was a better Jey Uso match than the previous year's encounter with Jimmy, but I think for Gunther, this year was a bit of a step down in terms of match quality against Sami Zayn. Still a fine match. You've got Gunther and Jey. They're like trading strikes. Jey's able to hold his own a lot here. Jey tries to dive into the referee for some reason, and so he had to get out of the way. I don't understand why Jey would have done that, except to facilitate this next part where the referee has to turn his back, and that allows Gunther to hit Jey with the belt, and then we get a big splash. Jey still kicks out, and that part of the match tickles me for what happens later this weekend, which we'll certainly get to. Jey counters a powerbomb with one of his own. He hits 3 straight Uso splashes, then locks in the sleeper. Gunther tapping out almost immediately after getting in the submission, and Jey Uso wins the match and is the new World Heavyweight Champion. He gets the belt handed to him by his brother Jimmy in the ring, and they embrace. They make their way back to the crowd. I thought that was a very sweet moment. I thought it was a fine match. I think it's ridiculous that the world title is in the opening match at WrestleMania, and the winner of the Royal Rumble gets a main event match at Mania. And I guess the idea is, any match that Jey Uso is in is the main event by default. But I think some people are going to take a while to get used to that. Jey Uso winning the championship. It feels like it's a long time coming at this rate, with the way he's been embraced by the fans and the way that he has helped, bring up business for the company. A lot of people want to degrade Jey. Suddenly now that he's a singles guy, everyone wants to, run him into the ground. And I don't think that's very fair. I think that, he's got a catchphrase. Yeah, like a lot of good wrestlers, a lot of popular wrestlers have famous catchphrases, and that seemed to do well for their careers. And I don't understand the hate. And I can see maybe it's kind of a bloodline fatigue thing, because we saw so much of Jey in the previous 5 years, in 4 years, I should say, in different various roles. So maybe people are sick of it that way. And obviously there's some people who really like Gunther and think he should have had a longer run with the world title. Not to say he'll never regain it or not have more dominant reigns with belts. I think he'll get there, but I think that this was a good point for Jimmy to win it. The crowd was certainly into it. I think that Twitter is the minority. It's a loud, vocal minority. But if you listen to the live audience and how they reacted to him, it definitely seems like they like him. The War Raiders defend the WWE Tag Team titles against the New Day. I've been loving the New Day since their heel turn just the very end of last year, when they officially kicked Big E out. And their run's been great. I love the Giant Gonzalez-inspired attires for Xavier and Kofi. Meanwhile, Eric and Ivar have to be the good soldiers and dress up in the nice gimmicks based off of Clash of Clans, which is the sponsor for this matchup here, and it just looks very silly. This match is a lot of fun. Seeing the Viking Raiders bust out some of their greatest hits, where Eric using Ivar as like a projectile, like slamming him off the apron onto his opponents, was pretty funny. There's one point where Kofi flattens Eric on the apron, and then the camera pans over to what looks like 3 people, like 3 camera operators all standing in a row. The New Day at one point try poetry in motion, but Kofi gets caught, and then Xavier's just down there on his hands and knees forever. You would think by now, the timing of the move at least, he should just move out of the way, but he stays there and gets slammed down on by Kofi. I love seeing Xavier, jump off the second rope, gets intercepted with a nice forearm by Eric. Lots of hard hits in this one. Ultimately, Woods hits daylight on Ivar, and then they keep his leg pulled down during the cover to make sure that the count stays. And the New Day once again make history and regain the tag team titles. The match was really good. Like I said, I've been really enjoying the New Day's heel turn. I think that with a turn like this and it being so drastic from where they were before the end of last year, I think you need to justify it with a tag team title run at some point. And so I'm happy that they got the belts again for a team that has been considered, kind of stagnant for a couple of years after Big E's injury. I think, when they turned heel, they made a lot of salient points. And so for them to regain the belts here, I think is great validation for that turn. It shows you this team still has a lot of life. And it's really good to see them come through like this on a match like this. Well, it only took WWE 41 years, but they got themselves a one-on-one women's match at a Wrestlemania that was not for a championship and didn't have any other stipulations attached to it. So, yay progress as Jade Cargill takes on Naomi. And it was Naomi that was revealed as the one who attacked Cargill and had her written off TV so she could swoop in and become a co-tag team champion with Belair. And it's really neat to see Naomi in this light as someone who has long been that bubbly, bright, neon, feel the glow kind of wrestler, the rave, the dancing and all that. And then for her to be kind of revealed as what seems at first like a justified heel sort of thing, but also a little bit crazy. And I think that's a great little bit of touch of character. And seeing Naomi get to play this character in what my opinion, what I think is the first time. I think it's great. It's nice to see these wrestlers who you've known for so long and have seen them as a certain way for so long try something different. And we see that across the board in this company as of this moment. And I think that, it is working for Naomi at this point. I liked her, I don't know if you want to call it Owen Hart inspired intro and attire for this. All the caution tape that read undervalued, third wheel, too nice. And she rips it apart. Oh, what an entrance that was. Then you have Jim Cantor from the Weather Channel with a live hit in front of the green screen. And he says, a storm is coming to Las Vegas. I loved Naomi's face buster draped off the apron and onto the floor. That was really good stuff here. This battle between Jade and Naomi is almost as compelling as the battle between the referee and the referee cam. You can keep seeing him trying to adjust the entire match. I don't think, other than when Seth was the guest referee for Punk and Drew last year, have we ever seen the sponsored referee cam get used. Jade fights back. She catches Naomi in midair and hits a jackhammer. Very impressive. Naomi misses a kick. Jade deadlifts her up. He gets a spinning powerbomb and the Jaded to get the win. I thought the match was okay. I think that, deep water for Jade. It's a one-on-one match. Wrestlemania, you're playing babyface, when I think historically she was a much better heel, at least in AEW, but I mean her being a standalone, on your own babyface, that seems to be new territory for Jade, and I think she carried it okay. It wasn't a terrific match. I guess if you're going to go by like star ratings or, that sort of thing, it was probably one of the weaker matches of the evening, but I still think that the story is good. Again, I think that Naomi as a heel is something that can be really interesting to see what they do to play with that. Again, it's always what's the next storyline after the one that causes the heel turn. Where do you go from there? And I think Naomi as a heel does have a lot of mileage. For the U.S. title, Los Angeles Knight has to defend against Jacob Fatu, and the real story in this one is Fatu's size and his strength versus LA Knight's quickness and agility. There's a lot of stick and move in this matchup. He's trying to avoid Fatu's power, but every time he gets caught in this by Fatu, he just gets wrecked. And so that is the big story of this one. Fatu using a lot of his power throughout here. At one point, he jumps up top. Knight jumps after him, hits this crazy German suplex. I love that. There's this top rope BFT, but Fatu grabs the rope at the last second in the cover, hits a second rope Samoan drop, 2 straight moonsaults. Fatu wins, and then there to greet him is the man called me. I'm very happy for Jacob Fatu. I think it's so cool. I didn't expect him to get the belt so soon. I assumed he would get a championship at some point, but I didn't think it would be this quick. I think it was really cool for him to get that statement made. This weekend's WrestleMania, you can see a lot of like who they're really putting their stock in and saying, okay, this is the guy, we're going to push this person here. And I think it was really cool for Jacob to get that rub. Again, as someone, I've known him for many years and worked with him in the Indies in California, and he was very exceptional even then. And I felt like it was a very long time coming for him to get signed and for him to have this moment at Mania. I think it's really cool. I again question LA Knight. Like, I figured this was not a great match where it wasn't a great display or a showcase of him. And it kind of reminds me of when Shinsuke beat him for the U.S. title some months ago, where it's like, oh, okay, this seems kind of like almost a punishment in some way. Like, LA is the U.S. champion, but what has he really done as the champion either time he held the belt? I still think it was, again, great showing for Jacob. I hope they do something really fun with that. But as far as LA Knight goes, like, is this it? Is this the peak for LA Knight? He's been a 2-time U.S. champion. You look at the landscape and who else they're pushing. Where does LA fit into 2025 plans going forward? I'm not sure, but you got a cool Maserati entrance, so at least there's that. One of the matches they had been building up to was Rey Mysterio taking on El Grande Americano, which is Chad Gable in a lucha mask. But sadly, Rey got hurt in the build to this, and so at the last minute, Rey Fenix is the replacement. They're trading a Rey for a Rey. And I love the El Grande Americano gimmick. I think it's so funny that people get upset about this one. I think it's the same thing as Kurt Angle, after having lost his hair, wrestling in a wig and a wrestling headpiece. It's just, everyone's in on the joke, and I think they can pull it off really well here. I loved the hype package for this matchup where they interview El Grande Americano and they dub him in English, which I thought was absolutely hysterical. You can tell there was some last minute ADRing in this package though, when they have to explain Rey's injury and throwing Rey Fenix in at the last second to try and bridge the gap there. I loved the mariachi band wearing masks and everything. That we get Vikingo from AAA front and center, seen here to, again, show off the nice new relationship and the acquisition. El Grande gets into it with Vikingo, and Vikingo decks him. Sadly, we will not see Vikingo bust out a big flippin' move at a WrestleMania. Not yet, anyway. And speaking of long, arduous battles, the referee here is messing with his camera piece again. There's some good back and forth here. Fenix is a very, very talented high flyer, and then you've got Gable, Grande, who's using his wrestling abilities. I love how he caught Fenix at one point into a Northern Lights suplex. That was pretty rad. Gable, again, showing off his insane athleticism at one point in the match, pulling off a 450 moonsault onto Rey. That was wild. In the end, the metal plate that El Grande uses to win matches comes into play again. Fenix kicks Grande in the head and he sells his leg like he got broke. The ankle lock, Rhea escapes, but he gets headbutted once with the loaded mask, and then a Grande with the top rope flying headbutt, again loaded mask, to deliver the killing blow and wins the matchup here. All I could think of when that match was over was like, man, wouldn't that headbutt have also really messed Gable up if he used the loaded mask there? Just food for thought. I thought that the match was fine for what it was. It was a match that didn't have any build because, you know, Fenix was Rey Mysterio's last minute replacement, so it wasn't the same story. And they tried to, you know, give a similar vibe, but I don't think it was from what they were hoping for. I like the gimmick, and I'm curious to see, you know, where it goes from here. But yeah, this wasn't the story. It was supposed to be Mysterio's match. And so yeah, it suffered a little bit because of that, I think. Well, they love to keep showing Dana White on the screen, and the fans sure love to keep booing him. And speaking of awkward interactions, we go to our next matchup, the semi-main of night one for the Women's Championship, as Tiffany Stratton defends against Charlotte Flair. Now, in my predictions post that I put on the channel, I said that I was the most interested on paper as to what was going to happen at night one. I didn't necessarily say it was going to be the better night. And this was a big reason as to why I was so interested, because of the way this has been going down as of late. I think Charlotte kind of doing the same thing Charlotte does, where she tries to bully and kind of throw her weight around, whether it's in promos or matches. We've seen this happen before, and it's always been kind of a case of like, who can stand up to Charlotte? Like, why does she get allowed to do this? And then you had this promo off between the two of them, Charlotte and Stratton. The face-to-face, I think Tiffany struggled there because she was getting bulldozed by Charlotte. I don't think she was prepared for it. And then in the live face-to-face they had on SmackDown, where Tiffany brings up Charlotte's divorces, and Charlotte has to try and quickly throw in a jab about Kaiser in her DMs. I think it's just another example of the times we've seen Charlotte being somewhat unprofessional in her work. We've seen some of the stuff where, again, she tries to throw her weight around in matches, and she'll try and, you know, do the same thing in promos. Who can forget that hilariously awkward belt exchange with her and Becky Lynch a few years ago, or getting into it with Nia Jax in the middle of a match. Like, there's all these examples, and I think that it was, you know, good on Tiffany for standing up for herself and trying to do something to show that she's not going to be just a homogenized, you know, scripted, overly prepared body for Charlotte to just kind of take advantage of. And I think that was very smart for her. The build for this whole thing suffers because they wanted Charlotte as a face, it seems. The fans completely reject her. And then you have Tiffany, who was a much better heel than a babyface, but then just through the process of her cash in and everything, and by virtue of not being Charlotte, she gets cheered. And so I think the match kind of suffers in that way, because I don't think that Tiffany, I think she can be a fine face eventually, but I think that just she, at this point, her character is, I think, a better heel than a babyface. This is a very physical and aggressive match. Not necessarily the good use of those adjectives in this one. I mean, there's some rough looking spots here. It's a hard looking way to get into this neck breaker, for instance. Charlotte really works over her opponent for a while. There is a nice sit out powerbomb she does here, but at some point in the match, something happens in which Tiffany's tooth gets broken. So things are a little rough, a little dicey as this match goes on. They attack each other's knees for a while. Charlotte puts Tiffany in the figure four, but Tiffy attacks the bad knee and breaks it up. The prettiest moonsault ever is blocked with the knees, but Charlotte hurts herself and can't capitalize. This top rope natural selection looks more like just a really big shove, and Tiffany kicks out. Lots of counters. Charlotte eventually goes into Sandbag City. As Tiffy goes for another PME, she connects and wins. So she actually retains the championship. This match got a lot of flack from people online. I actually went and rewatched it before filming this review to make sure we were watching the same matchup, because I walked away from it feeling better about it than I think most did. Obviously, there were still some, you know, ugly parts in the match that, again, showing that Charlotte is a bit of an awkward dance partner at times. But I think that Tiffany more than held her own, and I think that even busted mouth, busted tooth and all, still put on a great performance. And again, it's about being able to show that you won't be, you know, pushed into a corner, and you won't be, you know, manipulated easy. And so I think that it was cool for Tiffany, again, to hold her own in this one and just, put on as good a showing as you possibly could. I was surprised that, Charlotte even lost the match in the first place, but there you go. In the night one main event, Roman Reigns takes on Charles Montgomery Punk and Seth F. Rollins in a triple threat match. And I know that when this was first announced as the main event, some people got a little upset by it, considering there were other, title matches on WrestleMania that weren't going to get that final match of the night treatment. Also, just the way CM Punk gets the favor of, he's in a WrestleMania main event because he asked Paul Heyman to give him one. I thought that was a very interesting way to back your way into it. But I think the story between all three of these guys has gotten really interesting since Survivor Series, and I am curious about this matchup going into it. I liked all the entrances that these guys got. Seth coming out with the flamethrower and burning down, but not really burning down the set. And then you've got Roman Reigns not coming out last for the first time in a while. That was interesting to see. And those LED boards above the ramp with the other members of the Samoan dynasty was a really nice touch. And then that hype package for Punk was so good, incorporating some of the OVW footage and him coming up and them using that first promo he cut in ECW interspersed with modern day Punk reciting the promo. I thought that was so cool, and he gets the big entrance with Living Color, doing Cult of Personality. He gets Paul Heyman in his corner. Big ol' intro for CM Punk. And, I gotta give him props. They did a really good job, showing the history of CM Punk and really giving him a big thank you. And we've talked about this before. Like, every once in a while there's a show where it's like, okay, it's the big birthday boy's special day, and he gets this big superstar treatment, even if he doesn't win. And I think we saw that, with Sami Zayn in Montreal, and we saw that with Drew McIntyre at the first Clash of the Castle. It's like sometimes a wrestler will just get a big ol', here you go, we love you, and here's our way of showing it. And I think they showed a lot of love to Punk here. This match is full of that rope opera I've discussed before, that stuff that really we associate with, Roman Reigns and Paul Heyman. The big long looks and the serious dialogue and all the emotion and everything. Roman is really upset at Heyman for going behind his back seemingly, or you're joining up with CM Punk and cashing on the favorite here. But the fighting in this match is really well done, when you get beyond the moments, between the moments. At one point, Punk and Seth are fighting on the outside and into the crowd. Real trash, cry me a river. Punk mocking the ooh-ah, and he regrets it. We get the yay kind of boos with Punk and Roman here. We get the Anaconda Vice locked on a Roman, but Seth with the splash. Rollins goes on a big run now. Seth catching the spear into the pedigree. I love when they do that. I first saw that when I was at Money in the Bank 2016 live again in Las Vegas. They ran it back here to do that spot again. I thought that was really cool. We also get a stomp. He kicks Punk out of the ring, but he can't cover in time. We get the spear into Rollins, the GTS to Roman, and we get a kick out. That was so cool. Punk kicks out of the pedigree and starts doing some more jaw jacking. Seth tries to forge an alliance with Roman against Punk, tries to invoke the Shield stuff. Roman looking so conflicted, having to listen to people's advice, and they tease a Shield reunion of sorts, but psych, Roman decks Rollins and power bombs each of them through those fancy new announce tables and breaks them. Heyman looking mooey concerned. We get this awesome moment here. We get the GTS, the spear, the stomp into a triple down. At the end, Heyman grabs a steel chair. He seemingly hands it to CM Punk, but then he low blows the punker, and Roman's all very happy, showing all 30 or 40 of his very bright white teeth, and then he gets the chair, whomps Punk with it. Heyman is still in the ring. Roman's gonna hit Seth, but then Heyman hits a low blow onto Roman Reigns, and then he just calmly passes the chair to Seth, and Seth whomps him with the chairs, the stomp. Big win, Seth Rollins winning his first WrestleMania main event since Mania 31, cashing in the Money in the Bank. What a great match this was. this is the match of night one. You can pretty much forget most of the rest of this episode, of this edition of Mania, and watch the main, because I think it's the one that has the most interesting storytelling, and I think it's got the biggest stakes, despite it not being for a championship. And I think that this was, justified to be the final spot of night one. Uso versus Gunther, on paper, you're supposed to put that last because it's the main event, and that's a whole thing. But, I think that their logic with this one, it being the bigger, more emotional story, the cinema, as it were, I think it deserved to be in that top spot. I think just from a pure wrestling perspective and beat for beat moments, I think this was easily the strongest match of Saturday night. Night one of Mania was definitely a mixed bag, leaning toward more of, I don't want to say negative, just not great. I think that this weekend's Mania, we are going to see a bit of an exposure of the two-night system. And when you have a two-night Mania, you need actually both nights to be WrestleMania worthy. And sadly, with the exception of a couple of matches on this show, on Saturday night's show, I would say, this really was not that. But we move on to night two of Mania on Sunday. This was the show that my friends and I attended live and in person. So again, no star ratings for this one, since the live experience might skew the overall rating system. I wouldn't want to muddy the waters with that, but I'll sort of give you my overall thoughts based on, again, vibes, what I felt about the match when I saw it, how the crowd reacts, and just kind of give you my thoughts about that in general. We begin with night two's opening contest for the Women's World Championship. Io Sky defending against Rhea Ripley and Bianca Belair, the latter of which has done not a damn thing wrong, but the fans want to boo her anyway, and I do not understand that. I think maybe some of it had to do with the fact that they were doing the European tour in the build to Mania, and maybe the fans, for whatever reason there, didn't like Bianca, but I think it was an interesting build for sure. But I like the story of Io, not wanting to be the third wheel and being kind of the non-factor, because that seems to be such a stereotypical thing that we see in these triple threat title matches, where the champion seems like the smallest factor out of all of them. But Io is determined to kind of prove that wrong. Long story short, this match was awesome. This was the perfect way to kick off night two of Mania, with three of arguably the strongest workers putting on just a great show. These ladies are just throwing themselves at each other like projectiles. It's not just Io Sky flying around, but boy, there is just so much high impact stuff. Bianca hits a 450 onto Io. She kicks out of the Riptide. She looks strong as hell in this one. Rhea with a super Riptide attempt that gets countered. The moonsault is met with the boots. There's the KOD and the cover. The pin is broken up. Io going for a poison Rana. Rhea catches her and just reverse Alabama slams her into the ring post. And at that moment when she had her up, I'm like, oh, wouldn't that be funny if that's what she did? And then she did it. She practically impaled her on the ring post, which I thought was phenomenal. We get a roll onto Rhea by Bianca. Io moonsaults onto both of them and capitalizes. Io wins the match to retain. Like I said, this was an awesome way to start the show. I think it's definitely up there for some of the top Mania opening matches. If I did give this a star rating, I'd probably give it close to 4.5, because I think it was just that good. Like I said, three of the company's top and most popular performers. These three ladies, two of which had a lot of experience coming up through the Performance Center. I think these three had a great chemistry. And sometimes triple threat matches can take away from all three participants, but I think this one really added to all three. And I think it was just phenomenal work. And for Io to be the one to come out on top and retain, I think was also the right call for sure. Sin City Street Fight as Damian Priest takes on Drew McIntyre. I love Pat McAfee's call during the introductions where he says, the possibilities are endless in the Sin City streets, which is why this match will feature nothing but all the same weapons you're accustomed to seeing in a street fight in WWE. I mean, this was, again, another great brawl, a great war between two of, the biggest, hardest hitters in WWE. I think that Damian and Drew were very, very good against each other. And they had some not only impactful moments with funny stuff as well. Like at one point early on, Drew's just like beating the bejesus out of Damian with the steps, and he grabs like his phone from his friend at ringside and takes a selfie, and then they tweet, "bored at work, LOL." You've got Drew setting up a couple of tables on the outside, some Chekhov's tables as it were. Damian hucks a chair at Drew's head, Sabu style, but Drew just absorbs it and gives him a claymore. Damian hits a razor's edge onto Drew through a table. Drew ends up hitting the feature shock DDT on the stairs. In the end, Damian goes for old Scoo, but Drew pushes him off the ropes and he splats through those two tables. What a glorious, just very graceful fall through the tables, and just nice breaks on those tables too. You love to see it. So then Drew drags Damian back into the ring. We get the Uber Claymore, as Cole calls it. The Claymore into the chair, wedged against the corner for Drew to win. I wish that a Sin City street fight had some kind of things in there to invoke the spirit of Las Vegas, like body slam someone onto a slot machine or a poker table, or give me somebody hitting another wrestler with like a showgirl's like feather headdress and have someone sell that. Have giant poker chips. Give me something to tell me that we are in Las Vegas and not just having another street fight. But that being said, great work, like I said, between these two fellas. I looked at my watch and I couldn't believe that it took an hour to get through the first two matches on this show. For the Intercontinental Championship, you've got Bron Breakker defending against Penta, Dominik Mysterio, and Finn Bálor. Those two are, of course, in the Judgment Day, and the story is trouble in paradise, it seems, in the clubhouse between Finn and Dom. Cool to see Penta getting a WrestleMania match against brother Fenix. That's kind of a neat little statistic there for them. Braun showing stupid strength in this matchup here. He Germans both Finn and Penta at the same time. Fans are loving Dominik in this match. I mean, it's not necessarily a shock that they're cheering for him so much in this matchup, but it is crazy that like all that build has paid off in this way in Vegas. Carlito of the Judgment Day shows up at one point in the match. Braun goes on this crazy run of suplexes, rapid fire offense by all four guys. The fans go crazy when Dom goes for the 619 on his own partner, but Bálor fights back. Penta hits a destroyer on Dom, but Carlito pulls Penta out of the ring. They're setting up on the announce table, but Braun on the other one. He runs from one table to the other. We get a spear into the table and it collapses. And McAfee and Cole are both just like screaming about it, like somebody got shot right in front of them. You would think that they'd never seen a spot like that with how much they were just like shouting over each other.
Carlito to the table! Bring the spear, Carlito, to the damn table! Super spear from one table to the next!
Breakker hits the spear on Penta, Dom hits the 619, Bálor comes in, hits the coup de grace on Breakker, but then Dom does the exact same thing Io just did 2 matches ago to win and become the new Intercontinental Champion. Huge ovation for Dominik as he wins the belt, and I love to see him call this audible and run back into the ring to celebrate. That was so cool. You earned it, man. I love this match. Again, like, wow, what a difference Saturday and Sunday makes. The first 3 matches of night 2, it feels like WrestleMania again. It feels like it has like the impact and like this is what you came to see for the last couple of years at WrestleMania, is that whole banger after banger thing. And we after a couple of missteps on night 1, at this same time on night 2, it is far stronger. I think it's really cool to see Dominik get this moment. This is the big babyface turn, I'd say, officially. And, of course, don't know what the future programming holds from here at the time I'm recording this, but I think they really have something. I think it's so cool that the fans went from hating Dom, or at least loving to hate him because he was such an effective sleazy heel, to them, like, getting to see that character get fleshed out more and finding him pretty lovable, in many ways. And so the fans to accept him and make him the good guy in this scenario, somewhat fairly organically. It's not like they were like hammering it home to you on programming, or I don't know. I think it was a bit of a mix of both. WWE certainly helped them get to that conclusion, but I think that with the way the fans accepted him here was really cool to see, and it's really cool to see Dom really coming into his own. Well, Randy Orton was meant to fight Kevin Owens at Mania, but then KO had to back out due to his neck injury. He has to get surgery, so hopefully we'll see Kevin Owens come back stronger than ever in the future. So who is Orton going to face at this WrestleMania instead? And a lot of speculation as to who it could have been. I loved seeing Orton's gear on this night. He comes out with a throwback, kind of a reference to his rookie year gear. So Orton says, who's going to come out? Who's going to be fighting me at WrestleMania? Who's going to get their WrestleMania moment? And after a pause, we see the door slowly open and we hear, say his name, and he appears. And oh my God, it's TNA champion Joe Hendry making his WrestleMania debut as a surprise entrant. First time the TNA Championship has been represented at a WrestleMania. The fan reaction is absolutely nuts. And it's so cool to see. It's so awesome. Again, I think back to, how far Joe Hendry has come from like the WCPW days and, all the work he did into marketing himself and all the work he put in TNA and in the NXT stuff. I think WWE really kind of catching lightning with this and giving Joe Hendry this moment was really cool. However, I do have my qualms with the world champion of this other major company being led to slaughter like this. And so the match begins. Well, first of all, I love Orton's reaction when the music plays. It cuts to him like, okay. Like, that was such a great visual from Orton here. So Joe is able to hold his own early on here until he goes for the standing ovation. Orton just kind of no-sells him, pokes him in the eye, and he goes on a run. And then Joe hits one more big move. He does the turnaround, looks right at the hard cam, but bam, RKO out of nowhere. That was pretty magical. Orton wins the match. Then afterward, Orton gives him some props, but Psych hits the RKO on him again, hits the Joe Hendry pose. Well, this TNA partnership is going about as well as expected. Again, I'm of two minds about this. On the one hand, I think it was a very fun surprise. I think Joe Hendry deserves this moment, and I think it was kind of a nice, high point in this meteoric run he's been on. But, this is the company you're partners with, and, Hendry has already not been booked like a really strong champion in TNA. So this is not going to help his standings. To have, again, this world champion be made to look like a chump, not just in the match itself, but also getting buried pretty sufficiently by commentary as well. And again, it's not really a burial when it's on WrestleMania. And again, the exposure, it's I'm trying to acknowledge that, yes, the platform and the moment is very big. But man, I question how much of a winner TNA is being as a result of this partnership with WWE. It's great exposure bucks, but we'll see how long this keeps going. A generational matchup of sorts as AJ Styles takes on Logan Paul in a singles matchup. I say generational because I see a lot of similarities between Paul and a young AJ Styles, in so far as AJ was able to push the limits and just do some real crazy stuff for his time. And Logan Paul, even though I don't think he's by any means an innovator, I think he certainly has a lot of natural athleticism that makes it possible for him to do a lot of the similar stuff that Styles did in his younger days. And Logan's got a great charisma about him. And I think, again, they take advantage of that, how much of a hated individual he is, even though they won't say the reasons people hate him so much. It's not just because he is successful. I feel there's a bit more to discuss. There's a bit more in that Logan Paul iceberg that you have to discover as to why people might not like him. This matchup here for me, it was just kind of there. And I don't know if it was an issue of the overall fatigue I was feeling at that point. So many days in Vegas, sitting up in the nosebleeds and everything. But not to say we had a bad view. We had a great view of the ring, and we also had a great view of screen, so we could see everything. But it was just, yeah, I mean, it was a fine back and forth with these guys, is the best way to describe it. I loved Logan Paul's attitude. I mean, he carries it so well. Him coming out with the drone, with the WWE drone that flies around for his entrance, and then like midway through the match, he goes back to the Prime hydration station, and he lifts it off and has it go fly, and then they hold on that drone shot for a super long time as he continues to do his work to Styles. And like, I think that's a really fun case. I've complained about that in the past when sometimes they'll hold on to a shot for way too long, but I think using that there was pretty fun and effective. Paul getting some heat doing the Hulk Hogan taunts as the match goes on. Kind of a scary moment here where they try to go for a caught moonsault, but they can't quite get it, so they're just able to redirect. Near the end of the match, both men are down, and then Jeff, one of Logan Paul's buddies, is sneaking up to the apron, and he wants to do some mischief. But then suddenly he is stopped by Karrion Kross, who's really been trying to get into AJ's ear as of late, been trying to play devil's advocate and trying to convince him to be the AJ Styles of old in this one, whatever that means, because he was trying to get AJ to cheat with brass knuckles, and AJ's like, I don't want to do that. He throws it away. That's the AJ Styles of old, clean cut, squeaky clean babyface. But that ends up being his undoing because the distraction allows Logan to hit him with a loaded fist and the pulverizer for Logan to win. Again, this match was fine for me. I was kind of like, you can picture in your head what a match of these two would look like, and it was pretty much that. It was exciting for the fans in attendance, and had an interesting finish. Kross in this role, I think it's better than most anything else he's done in WWE, so I'm curious to see where this and AJ Styles will go. But good showing for both guys. Logan looking impressive in his victory, and AJ being a good facilitator for that. In another big last-minute change to the card, it was supposed to be Bayley and Lyra Valkyria challenging Raquel Rodriguez and Liv Morgan for the women's tag titles. Then Bayley was taken out with a kayfabe injury, which I hate when they do that. I hate when they advertise a match for whether it's WrestleMania or not, where they advertise a match and then like someone's taken out of the match for like non-injury reasons. Like it's for some storyline related thing that may or may not have a purpose down the line. I hate when that happens because Bayley's not hurt. It's disappointing. She doesn't get a WrestleMania match. So who is going to be who's going to be Lyra's partner in the tag title match? It's only a returning Becky Lynch. We've not seen her in nearly a year. So that was a big surprise, big pop for these two Irish gals to team up and take on these two members of the Judgment Day. And it's just a match, you know. It's the shock and awe of Becky Lynch returning, and beyond that, it's just kind of a basic heely-facey sort of story. And in the end, you've got Becky Lynch hitting that manhandle slam on Morgan, the cover and the win. Lynch and Valkyria are the new women's tag team champions. And hey, how's that for a push for Lyra? She's a double champion. The first women's Intercontinental champion. She wins the tag belt, and that's a really cool feather in the cap for the feathery Lyra Valkyria. She was really covered in them, folks. As far as the match, like I said, it's just kind of middle of the road for me. But the moment of Lynch's return and, kind of the make good, okay, it's like not only you have to do a lineup change, but also having the fans kind of go home happy on that one with a title change was a pretty smart strategy. Stone Cold Steve Austin crashes his 4x4 more than once on his way to the ring, including once into the barricade, crashing into this woman on the other side. Hey, maybe with that lawsuit, she'll be able to afford front row Mania tickets for life.
Everyone please rise for our national anthem.
And then it's time for the main event of night 2. For the undisputed WWE Championship, you have Cody Rhodes defending the title against John Cena in Cena's final WrestleMania match, or so they say. The build to this has been very up and down. Like I said at Elimination Chamber, how excited I was for the possibility of a heel John Cena. Oh my gosh, he's working with The Rock. Oh, we're starting a new corporation. Like, this is really interesting. And then, like, in the weeks that have followed, not so much. Like, Cena's whole justification for his heel turn has been a whole, like, you people, each and every one of you drove me to this, which is like, how boring. How many heel turns have we seen in the last 30 years or more that have been justified by that. Oh, well, you people didn't like me, and so I've had too much. And in Cena's case, I've waited 25 years to do this. Like, it's such a weak excuse. It doesn't really seem like it makes sense coming from him. There's so much to explore with a relationship with a heel John Cena and a heel Rock. And maybe they will get to that, but you would have liked them to have gotten to that more at WrestleMania. This feels like the time for that, and they totally dropped the ball on that. So Cena's heel turn, while it's still different and new considering who it is, it's like the motivations just seem like, okay, you and every other heel, like you could give us something really different with your rationales, and I think they totally dropped the ball on that. But one thing I thought was cool was Cena's very understated entrance here. He comes out to "My Time Is Now," but there's no flashing lights, there's no colorful Titantron, it's just black screen, white Helvetica font, John Cena. And it's on the ramp, John Cena, and he just slowly walks down the ramp with a black shirt. It's the evil John Cena now. And so he comes out, and then you've got Cody Rhodes with his skull mask that opens mechanically. So is he a Captain America? Is he Iron Man? Is he Homelander? How many heroes are you going to cop, Cody? This is a weird match. It's a slow match. John Cena as a heel is just John Cena doing the same stuff he'd always done, but like 50% slower at least, and also with more of just like a, come on, man. This guy with a smirk on his face. He's just more full of himself. And so you are seeing a different John Cena than what we're used to. But God, it is, you thought that Roman and Cody had slow pacing in their WrestleMania matches. Brother, you've not seen slow until you watch this match back. Also, the fans are fully against Cody Rhodes in this match. The live crowd does not like Cody. And again, I don't understand the fickleness of live crowds sometimes. And Mania, it's a smart crowd, and they're, it's going to be, they might subvert expectations. But this, I don't know, the whole backlash on Cody makes no sense to me. Because if you look at how the show's gone, I think he's been a very well, strong-booked babyface champion. And, I think that some people find that boring, but I think that he's doing a good job being the flag bearer and the champion, the literal, symbolization of the company as a representative. He's done a great job with that. And so, but yeah, fans find him boring because he finished his story and they want something else. So, and yes, comparatively, heel John Cena is a bit more interesting than Cody Rhodes right now. I mean, on paper. So the fans are booing everything Cody does and cheering everything Cena does, even though we are also getting dueling "Let's Go Cena, Cena sucks" chants. It's all over the place. And when you're live, and I was on the very top row, so I'm able to see and hear all this. And so it's just very surreal. We get a referee bump just before Cody hits his crossroads, and you think he has the match won. We also get an exposed turnbuckle at one point in the match. Cena drives Cody into it twice, hits his fourth AA, and Cody is still able to kick out. I will say one thing. They make Cody look pretty strong, and it's a straight-up one-on-one situation. But then Travis Scott's music plays, the song you've been hearing all damn weekend because it was the theme of WrestleMania. So in comes Travis Scott with his fancy hardcore championship, taking all day to walk down to the ring while this match is still going on. So then they just celebrate for a little bit, do Cena and Travis Scott. Scott pulling the referee out of the ring after Cody hits the crossroads. Then Scott gets in Rhodes' face before going for a slap. Rhodes blocks it. He hits Scott with the crossroads, which does get a pop, but Cena's got that championship belt.
What is Cody Rhodes going to choose? Oh, come on!
He clocks Cody with it, and then it takes forever after the referee gets up again to make the cover. The 1, the 2, the 3. John Cena has won, is the 17-time World Heavyweight Champion, officially beating Ric Flair's official record of 16. And yeah, he's here to ruin wrestling, and you know what? He might be the one to do it. This match was not great. I think there were so many opportunities of what you could do with a heel John Cena, and in this opening salvo, I don't think it was great. I think that this felt so similar to me from when like Cena fought Roman Reigns. I think it was in 2021 at SummerSlam, and it was just like, yeah, really slow pacing, more so than a typical John Cena match. But now this was even more boring because it was, Cody was Sting. This felt like Starrcade 97, where Hogan just beating on Sting, and Sting's the hero, but he gets like no offense in. That's what I felt like with a lot of this matchup. And, I think a lot of people expected The Rock to show up, or literally anyone but Travis Scott. You look at how Cody's been booked for the last year plus, and all the odds he's overcome, and everything he has fought through. Think of how much bloodline bullshit he had to withstand across 2 consecutive WrestleManias to only go down to a rapper who doesn't wrestle and 1 belt shot. I don't know. I don't like that at all. I think that was, could have been done a bit more differently. I guess it's nice. It shows restraint when after 2 straight years, like 3 or 4 run-ins, you have 1. That's fine. But it's like, God, what a whiff. I think that would have been so much more powerful if it was The Rock. Again, like, The Rock is the catalyst for all this. Who gives a shit about Travis Scott? Like, I don't care who he is. And, I think a lot of other people don't either. And I just, like, what does this have to do with anything? Is Travis Scott going to wrestle Cody? Is that the payoff we're getting to this? Like, ooh boy, I don't know. Like, again, I didn't doubt that John Cena was going to win. I thought it was just a really big missed opportunity. And for Cody to lose the belt the way that he did, felt so lacking to me. Maybe that's the goal. The goal is to troll you and to disappoint you at a WrestleMania. So I guess you can hopefully buy tickets to go see Mania 42. I don't know. The last few Manias before this, 38, 39, 40, those were all really strong 2-night events. But I think with this show, it's the first one in a while where you could say, yeah, this could have been a 1-night Mania. You could have easily taken a couple matches from night 1 and most of night 2 and consolidated it into one show that would have been 10 times stronger than what we got across 2 nights. Again, some bright spots in each show. I think we're seeing some of that, long-term, what Paul Levesque's booking is starting to look like. And, I don't think the build to this Mania was particularly strong. And I think that this was a bit of a dip, a bit of a step back in terms of quality. Some of the matches, on paper, didn't look like they were fun WrestleMania matches, and then we'd be proven right. And I think that there is something to say about going to see it live. Maybe night 1 would have been stronger for me if I'd seen it live instead of watching it on TV, and maybe I would have felt the inverse. But on night 2. But I think that night 2, taking the live experience out of it, just at the outcomes and the decisions and the moments, I would give night 2 the edge over night 1. Again, a couple of nice things about night 1 that are worth taking away from, but that I'm glad I did not spend money for both nights and witness that one live. But what did you think of Mania 41? What were your favorite nights? What were your favorite moments and matches from those nights? I really want to hear about it in the comment section below. Well, folks, I gotta tear down this camera and pack my stuff up and hop on a plane back to Oregon, and it's just gonna be back to business as usual at Regret HQ. Thank you so much for watching. Stay tuned for a vlog in the weeks to come about the experience here in Las Vegas. I've had a great time. I hope you had a great time at WrestleMania weekend, no matter what kind of wrestling you were consuming. Thanks to all the amazing fans in Vegas who came out to say hello to me and said hi. It was really neat. It's always really humbling and very flattering to meet the fans. And it was great to, see so many bright, smiling faces in a bright, sunny city as Vegas. So until next time, folks, I'm Brian Zane, and thank you so much for your support.